In London, Clara discovers that her family heirloom, an ancient mirror, is more than just a decorative piece. It holds the power to reveal hidden truths and memories. When a secret society known as the Obsidian Circle seeks to control the mirror, for their dark ambitions, Clara teams up with the brilliant detective Sherlock Holmes, his loyal friend Dr. Watson, and a resourceful ally named Finn. Together, they navigate a series of puzzles and confrontations that lead them into the catacombs beneath the city, where the mirror's true origins are revealed. As they face danger from the Obsidian Circle, Clara learns about her family's history and the mirror's legacy. With the help of her grandmother's journal, they perform a counter-ritual to protect the mirror and thwart the society's plans. Ultimately, they bring the Obsidian Circle to justice, but Clara realizes that their battle to safeguard the mirror's power has only just begun. Together, they vow to continue protecting the secrets of the past and ensuring that darkness does not prevail. Chapter 1. The Mysterious Client In the heart of Victorian London, where the fog curled around the gaslit streets like an uninvited specter, the world seemed to pulse with secrets. The sound of horse-drawn carriages echoed through the alleys, mixing with the distant clamor of the marketplace, a vibrant clash of life and commerce. Yet in the dimly lit rooms at 221B Baker Street, a different kind of tension brewed. Sherlock Holmes sat in his armchair, the smoke from his pipe curling lazily toward the ceiling. He had not been in the mood for any cases lately. The last had been a trifling matter involving a missing cat that had turned out to be hiding in a neighbor's attic. Dr. John Watson, his faithful companion, had just returned from a visit to a patient and was busy scribbling notes in his journal. "Holmes," Watson began, glancing up from his writing, "you seem unusually contemplative. Have you a new case brewing?" Before Holmes could respond, a sharp knock echoed through the apartment. Watson raised an eyebrow, surprised by the sudden interruption. Holmes, however, wore a familiar glint in his eye, one that suggested the arrival of a new enigma. The door creaked open, revealing a tall figure cloaked in a dark overcoat, a wide-brimmed hat pulled low over their face. A glimmer of something metallic sparkled from the stranger's hand. "Mr. Holmes?" the figure inquired, voice low and gravelly. "Indeed," Holmes replied, rising from his chair with an air of curiosity. "And you are?" "An acquaintance," the figure said, stepping into the light. As the hat tilted back, revealing sharp features and piercing blue eyes, Watson felt a chill creep down his spine. There was something unsettling about this person, something that whispered of danger. "I have a matter of utmost urgency to discuss." Holmes gestured for the stranger to take a seat. "Pray, tell us your story," he urged, leaning forward with interest. Watson observed silently, intrigued by the tension that filled the room. The stranger took a deep breath, then began to speak. "I am a collector of rare artifacts, and recently I acquired a most unusual item, an ancient mirror said to be cursed. It was passed down through generations, each owner meeting with a tragic fate. I thought it was merely folklore, until I began to experience peculiar occurrences." Holmes's interest piqued, and he leaned closer. "What kind of occurrences?" "Visions," the collector whispered, leaning in as if to share a dark secret. "Visions of past owners, each one meeting a grim end. I have seen their faces, their screams echoing in my mind. And now, I fear the mirror has chosen me as its next victim." Watson exchanged a glance with Holmes, who appeared to be lost in thought. "And what do you wish from us?" Holmes asked, his voice steady. "I need you to help me understand this curse," the collector replied, desperation creeping into their tone. "I cannot bear the weight of these visions any longer. I believe the mirror hides a terrible truth, and if we do not uncover it, I shall surely perish." Holmes's eyes narrowed, contemplating the implications of the collector's story. "You claim to have the mirror with you?" he asked. "Yes," the collector said, producing a small, ornate box from beneath their coat. As they opened it, a chilling aura filled the room. Inside lay the mirror, its surface dark and foreboding, reflecting the dim light in a way that seemed almost alive. Watson felt a shiver run down his spine as he peered into the depths of the glass. "What do you wish us to do?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I need you both to examine it," the collector said. "I cannot face this alone. I fear that if I continue to look into it, I will lose my sanity." Holmes took a step closer, drawn to the mystery that lay before him. "Very well," he said, his curiosity ignited. "We will investigate this mirror, but you must be prepared for what we may find." As the evening wore on, the atmosphere grew heavier, the weight of the collector's words hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Watson felt a creeping sense of dread, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of a revelation that would reveal not just the truth behind the cursed mirror, but the darkness that lurked within the human soul. With the mirror before them, they began their investigation. Little did they know that the horrors of the past would soon come knocking at their door, and the very fabric of reality would be tested in ways they could never have imagined. As the candlelight flickered, casting eerie shadows across the walls, the first echoes of the curse began to stir, whispers of despair that would soon engulf them all. Chapter 2. An Unexpected Encounter. The chill of the evening deepened as the gas lights flickered to life, casting elongated shadows that danced along the walls of 221B Baker Street. Holmes, Watson, and the collector sat around the small table, the ornate box containing the cursed mirror resting heavily between them. The air was thick with tension, and Watson could feel an unsettling energy radiating from the object, as if it were alive. Holmes leaned forward, examining the mirror with his keen eyes. Its surface was smooth, yet it seemed to ripple like a disturbed pond. "Tell me more about this object," he urged the collector, who was visibly shaken. "How did you come by it?" The collector swallowed hard, their voice trembling slightly. "I acquired it from an estate sale in the countryside. The previous owner, a recluse, was rumored to have gone mad. They had surrounded themselves with ancient artifacts, but none were as sinister as this mirror." Watson felt a shiver creep up his spine as he listened. "And you believe that it is responsible for the madness?" The collector nodded vigorously. "Yes, I've seen the faces of the previous owners in my dreams. They come to me, pleading for help, their eyes filled with terror. I cannot escape them." Holmes's expression grew serious. "You mentioned visions. Can you describe them?" The collector hesitated, glancing at the mirror as if it were a predator waiting to strike. "I see them standing before the mirror, their faces twisted in anguish. I hear their final moments, a scream, a cry for help. Each time it becomes more vivid, more real. I fear I am losing my grip on reality." Holmes leaned back, contemplating the implications. "It seems this mirror acts as a conduit for the memories of its past owners. But why you? Why now?" "I don't know," the collector exclaimed, anguish etched across their features. "Perhaps it is because I am the latest in a long line of owners. Perhaps I have disturbed something that should have remained undisturbed." Just then, a sudden loud knock echoed through the room, interrupting the tense discussion. Watson jumped slightly, instinctively reaching for the revolver he kept hidden in the drawer. Holmes, however, remained unfazed, his curiosity piqued. Who could that be at this hour? Watson wondered aloud. Holmes rose and walked to the door, opening it with a swift motion. Standing in the doorway was a young woman, drenched from the rain and visibly shaken. Her wide eyes darted around the room, landing on the mirror with a look of horror. "Mr. Holmes!" she gasped, her voice trembling. "I need your help." Holmes stepped aside, allowing her to enter. "What brings you here at such an hour?" he asked, noting the urgency in her demeanor. "My name is Clara," she said, wringing her hands. "I heard tales of your prowess in solving mysteries. I believe I have been followed." Watson exchanged a glance with Holmes, intrigued. Followed? By whom? Clara glanced over her shoulder as if expecting someone to leap from the shadows. "I don't know, but I can feel their presence. It's as if they've been watching me for days. It began after I stumbled upon an old diary in my grandmother's attic. A diary that spoke of a cursed artifact." Holmes's interest piqued. "What kind of artifact?" Clara hesitated, then pointed at the ornate box on the table. That mirror. My grandmother owned it before she died. She warned me never to look into it. She said it would bring ruin. Watson felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. You must have touched it then. I didn't, not directly, Clara insisted, her voice rising. But I felt its pull, its dark energy. Ever since then, strange things have been happening. Shadows moving in the corner of my eye, whispers in the dark. I thought I was going mad until I heard about this place. I had to come. Holmes returned to the table, his mind racing with connections. It seems we have a convergence of events, he remarked. Two individuals drawn to this mirror, two lives entwined by its curse. Clara's eyes widened as she approached the table. You have it? What have you learned? Holmes exchanged a glance with the collector before responding. We have only begun our investigation, but it seems this mirror holds the key to more than just your fears. It is a gateway to the past, and perhaps the source of your hauntings. Clara shivered, stepping closer to Watson for reassurance. What do we do now? We must uncover the truth behind this mirror, Holmes declared, his voice steady. And we must do so before its curse ensnares any more souls. As they gathered around the table, Clara's presence added another layer of tension to the room. The mirror loomed ominously, a silent spectator to the unfolding drama. Watson felt the air grow heavier, as if the very walls were closing in, trapping them within a web of secrets and horrors. Holmes began to devise a plan. First, we will need to research the previous owners and their fates. We must understand what binds them to this mirror. Clara, if you have any information about your grandmother's diary, it may prove invaluable. Clara nodded, determination flickering in her eyes. I will retrieve it immediately. I have it hidden in my home. Good, Holmes replied. And while you do that, I will discuss our findings with our current client. We must not lose sight of the danger lurking within this object. As Clara left the apartment, the tension in the room thickened. Watson could feel the weight of the unknown pressing down upon them. They were now entwined in a mystery that reached far beyond their initial expectations, one that threatened to unravel the very fabric of their sanity. The clock ticked ominously as darkness enveloped London, and the shadows of the past began to stir once more. Chapter 3. The Case of the Stolen Gems. The rain continued to pour outside, drenching the streets of London in a relentless downpour. Holmes and Watson prepared for a long night of investigation. The atmosphere in 221B Baker Street was charged with anticipation, the air thick with the scent of pipe smoke and the promise of unsolved mysteries. Holmes paced the room, deep in thought. The arrival of Clara had added a new layer of complexity to their situation, intertwining her fate with that of the cursed mirror. With the collector's stories echoing in his mind, he knew that they needed to delve deeper into the history of the artifact. Yet another mystery loomed on the horizon, one that had been simmering in the background, a case that had been brought to his attention earlier that week. Watson, Holmes said, finally breaking the silence. Before we delve further into the mirror's curse, we must address another matter that demands our attention, the case of the stolen gem. Watson looked up from his notes, intrigued. What gem is that, Holmes? Holmes gestured to the stack of correspondence on his desk. A rare blue diamond known as the Heart of the Ocean. It was stolen from the estate of Lord Harrington. Just days ago, the theft has caused quite a stir in high society, and I received a letter from Lady Harrington pleading for our assistance. Watson raised an eyebrow. And you intend to take on this case as well? Indeed. The theft of such a valuable item often leads to a web of deceit, and I suspect it may be connected to something darker, Holmes replied, his eyes gleaming with excitement. We may find clues that will lead us back to the mirror. With a shared understanding, they gathered their belongings and set out into the stormy night. The streets were slick with rain, the gaslights flickering as they made their way to Lord Harrington's estate, a grandiose mansion that towered over the other buildings in the neighborhood. Upon their arrival, they were greeted by a flustered butler who ushered them into a lavish drawing room adorned with rich tapestries and ornate furniture. Lady Harrington, a striking woman with a regal presence, stood by the fireplace, her expression a mix of agitation and despair. "Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson," she greeted them, her voice trembling slightly. "Thank you for coming on such short notice. The diamond has been in my family for generations, and its loss is not only a financial blow, but a personal tragedy." Holmes studied her carefully, noting the subtle signs of distress etched on her face. "Please recount the events leading up to the theft," he urged, motioning for her to sit. Lady Harrington took a deep breath, attempting to compose herself. "It was during a soirée we hosted last Saturday. The diamond was displayed prominently in the drawing room, a centerpiece of the evening. We had several guests, including a few acquaintances of questionable character." "Who were these guests?" Holmes asked, his interest piqued. "Lord Ashcroft, a notorious gambler, Miss Isabel, a socialite with a penchant for drama, and Mr. Thompson, an art dealer with a dubious reputation," Lady Harrington replied, her fingers nervously fidgeting with a silk handkerchief. "Did you notice anything unusual during the evening?" Watson inquired, his instincts kicking in. She hesitated, then nodded. "I did see Miss Isabel lingering near the diamond. She seemed fascinated by it. And then, just as the clock struck midnight, the lights flickered and there was a commotion. The garden. I thought it was merely a prank, but when the lights returned, the diamond was gone." Holmes's mind raced, piecing together the fragments of information. "And what of the guests? Did anyone leave the party early?" "No. They all remained until the end, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had planned this." Lady Harrington insisted. "Very well," Holmes said, rising from his seat. "We must speak to each of these individuals. If there is a connection between the diamond and the mirror, we may uncover something significant." With the ladies' permission, they set off to interview the guests. Their first stop was Lord Ashcroft's residence, a lavish townhouse adorned with extravagant decorations. Upon arrival, they were greeted by a tall man with an air of arrogance. "Holmes! Watson! What brings you to my humble abode?" Lord Ashcroft smirked, his eyes glinting with mischief. "Your presence at the Harrington soirée is of interest," Holmes replied coolly. "I'd like to ask you a few questions regarding the stolen diamond." Ashcroft feigned innocence, crossing his arms. "Ah, the diamond, a dreadful affair truly, but I assure you I had nothing to do with it." "Then tell me, what were you doing during the commotion?" Watson pressed, narrowing his gaze. "Merely enjoying a cigar on the terrace. I heard the ruckus but thought it nothing more than a drunken revelry," Ashcroft replied dismissively. Holmes studied him intently, sensing the underlying tension in his demeanor. "And what do you know of Miss Isabel?" "Just a frivolous woman with dreams of grandeur. I wouldn't trust her further than I could throw her," Ashcroft scoffed. "She's always looking for a way to elevate her status." With that, they took their leave, heading to the next destination. Miss Isabel's residence, a smaller but equally lavish apartment in a fashionable district. As they entered, they were met by a flurry of excitement and intrigue, with Isabel, herself perched on a chaise lounge, a glass of wine in hand. "Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson, how delightful to see you," she cooed, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Holmes wasted no time. "We're investigating the theft of the Heart of the Ocean diamond. What can you tell us about the soirée?" "Oh, it was positively enchanting, but I must admit I was quite taken by the diamond," she said, her voice dripping with feigned innocence. "I was only admiring its beauty." "Admiring, you say? And yet you were seen lingering near it," Holmes pressed. "Merely appreciating art, my dear Holmes, you know how it is. A woman of taste cannot resist such magnificence," she replied, a sly smile on her lips. Watson instinctively felt a spark of doubt. "And you have no idea who could have taken it?" Isabel waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, darling, it's London. Everyone is a thief at heart. I wouldn't be surprised if the butler himself was involved." With that, they departed, heading to their final interview, Mr. Thompson, the dubious art dealer. Upon arrival, they found him in a cluttered gallery, surrounded by canvases and sculptures. "Holmes, Watson!" Thompson exclaimed, his eyes darting nervously. What brings you here? I trust it's not about that dreadful diamond? Indeed it is, Holmes replied, his tone sharp. What can you tell us about the Harrington soiree? Only that it was filled with the usual pomp and nonsense, Thompson said, wiping his brow. I had no interest in the diamond. I prefer my art to be unadorned by jewels. Yet you were seen conversing with Lady Harrington, Watson interjected. Merely discussing a potential sale. I had no hand in the theft, Thompson insisted, his voice rising. I assure you my dealings are strictly legitimate. Holmes studied him closely, sensing a flicker of deception. And yet there is something about this situation that doesn't add up. With their interviews complete, Holmes and Watson returned to Baker Street, the weight of the mystery pressing heavily on their minds. Each guest had offered a glimpse into the world of deception and intrigue, but none had provided a clear answer. As they sat in the dim light of the room, Holmes's thoughts drifted back to the cursed mirror and its connection to the diamond. Watson, I believe we are on the precipice of uncovering something far more sinister than a mere theft. Watson leaned forward, intrigued. What do you mean? The parallels between the diamond and the mirror are too strong to ignore. Both have a history of tragedy and loss. I suspect that the theft was orchestrated by someone with knowledge of the mirror's curse. Holmes's voice dropped to a whisper, the excitement palpable. We must tread carefully, for we are delving into dangerous waters. The true nature of this case may lead us to confront forces beyond our understanding. As the storm raged outside, the two men sat in silence, contemplating the shadows that loomed ahead. They had embarked on a journey that would challenge their minds, their fears, and the very fabric of reality itself. The night wore on, and the echoes of the past began to whisper once more. Chapter 4. A Clue in the Shadows. The night crept further into its depths, draping London in an oppressive veil of darkness. The rain had subsided, leaving a damp chill in the air that permeated the very bones of the city. Holmes and Watson sat in the flickering candlelight of 221B Baker Street, their minds racing with the complexities of the cases they had undertaken. The mirror, the diamond, and the intertwining fates of the individuals involved weighed heavily on their thoughts. Holmes, Watson began, breaking the silence that had settled over them. What do you propose we do next? The interviews have yielded little information, and yet I cannot shake the feeling that we are missing something crucial. Holmes leaned back in his chair, his eyes reflecting the light of the flame. Indeed, my dear Watson, the theft of the heart of the ocean, diamond, and the curse surrounding the mirror are intricately linked. We must return to the scene of the crime, the Harrington estate. There may be clues we overlooked amid the chaos of the soiree. Watson nodded, feeling a surge of determination. Very well. The sooner we return, the better. Perhaps we can uncover something that will shed light on both mysteries. They donned their coats and hats, stepping into the cool night air once more. The streets were now eerily quiet, the occasional scuffle of a rat echoing through the cobblestone alleys. Their footsteps echoed ominously as they made their way to the Harrington estate. Upon arrival, they were met by the butler, who seemed relieved to see them. Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson, thank you for returning. Lady Harrington is in the drawing room, still distraught over the theft. Holmes and Watson followed the butler into the opulent drawing room, where Lady Harrington sat, her face pale and drawn. Mr. Holmes, I'm grateful for your visit, she said, her voice laced with desperation. Have you uncovered anything? Not yet, my lady, but we intend to search the estate for any overlooked clues, Holmes replied, his eyes scanning. The room. May we? Of course, do whatever you must, she said, her tone one of resignation. Holmes and Watson moved through the lavishly decorated rooms, their eyes keenly searching for any signs of disturbance. The drawing room, where the diamond had been displayed, was still adorned with remnants of the soiree, empty glasses, discarded napkins, and the lingering scent of perfume. Holmes, look here, Watson called, pointing to a corner of the room where the curtains billowed slightly, as if disturbed. The curtains seemed to have been pulled aside. Holmes approached, inspecting the area closely. Indeed, they are no longer hanging evenly. Someone may have hidden behind them during the commotion. He reached out to touch the fabric and noticed something glinting on the floor, a small, silver cufflink, engraved with an intricate design. "Interesting," he murmured, picking it up. "This could belong to one of the guests." Watson examined the cufflink, his brow furrowing. "It appears quite expensive." "I recognize that design. It's the mark of Lord Ashcroft." Holmes nodded, his expression turning serious. "This may provide us with a lead. The question is, why would Ashcroft be hiding in this room during the chaos?" As they continued their search, they moved toward the library, a vast room filled with shelves of dusty tomes. Holmes approached the fireplace, noting the subtle signs of recent use. "It seems the fire was stoked not long ago," he remarked, leaning closer. "Do you think someone was here after the party?" Watson asked, scanning the room for any signs of intrusion. "Quite possibly. We should investigate further," Holmes replied, his eyes narrowing as he reached for a poker beside the fireplace. He prodded the ashes, revealing a small, charred piece of paper that had been carelessly discarded. Carefully, he extracted it, revealing a partially burned note. "This could be significant," he said, holding it up to the light. "What does it say?" Watson inquired, leaning closer to inspect the remnants. Holmes squinted, piecing together the faded words. "It mentions a meeting, the hour of midnight, and something about the artifact. It appears to be a correspondence regarding the mirror." Watson's eyes widened. "Then someone in this very room is involved with the mirror." "Indeed," Holmes replied, excitement sparking in his eyes. "This note could unravel the entire mystery. We must confront Lord Ashcroft and ascertain his involvement." As they exited the library, Lady Harrington approached them, her face etched with concern. "Have you found anything?" "We have uncovered a clue, my lady," Holmes replied, holding up the cufflink. "This belongs to Lord Ashcroft. We believe he may have been involved in the theft of the diamond." Lady Harrington gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "But how could that be? He seemed so charming during the soiree." "Charm can often mask deceit," Watson interjected, his voice steady. "We must confront him and determine what he knows." With a newfound urgency, they left the Harrington estate and made their way back to Lord Ashcroft's townhouse. The rain had returned, falling in heavy sheets that blurred the contours of the city. As they approached the door, Holmes knocked firmly, his expression resolute. After a moment, the door swung open, revealing a startled Lord Ashcroft. "Holmes! Watson! What brings you here so late?" he asked, feigning surprise. "We need to speak with you about the diamond," Holmes stated, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "And your cufflink, which was found at the scene of the crime." Ashcroft's face paled slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. "A mere coincidence, I assure you. I was simply dropping by to offer my condolences to Lady Harrington." "Yet you were seen lingering in the drawing room during the commotion," Watson pressed, his voice firm. "What were you truly doing there?" "I was merely admiring the diamond," Ashcroft replied smoothly, attempting to deflect their suspicions. "It's not unusual for a man of taste to appreciate such beauty." Holmes took a step closer, his gaze unwavering. "The note we found indicates that you were involved in more than mere admiration. It mentions a meeting concerning the artifact, the mirror." Ashcroft's expression shifted, a flicker of hostility crossing his features. "You are mistaken, Holmes. I have no interest in your superstitions and curses." "Then why was your cufflink found at the scene?" Holmes pressed. "Perhaps it was merely a trick of fate," Ashcroft retorted, his voice rising. "I am a victim of circumstance just as Lady Harrington is. If you suspect me, then you might as well accuse half of high society." Watson stepped in, attempting to quell the rising tension. "Lord Ashcroft, we are not here to accuse without evidence. We seek the truth, and your cooperation will help us uncover it." "Very well," Ashcroft said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "What? Do you wish to know? Tell us everything about your interactions with the diamond and the mirror," Holmes demanded, his patience wearing thin. "What do you know?" Ashcroft hesitated, glancing away as if weighing his options. I may have heard rumors of the mirror's curse, but I dismissed them as mere folklore. I certainly had no intention of stealing the diamond." "Yet you were present at the estate, and your cufflink was found near the scene," Watson reiterated. "We have reason to believe there is more at play than you are letting on." As the confrontation continued, the tension in the room crackled like electricity. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the hallway, drawing their attention. The sound of hurried footsteps followed, and before they could react, a figure burst through the door, a masked intruder, brandishing a dagger. "Get away from him!" the intruder shouted, lunging toward Ashcroft. Holmes and Watson reacted instantly, instinctively moving to protect Ashcroft. The struggle that ensued was chaotic, with the intruder grappling with the two detectives. In the midst of the fray, the masked figure shouted, "The mirror belongs to me. You cannot have it." Watson could feel adrenaline coursing through his veins as he fought to subdue the attacker. "Who are you?" he demanded, struggling against the intruder's strength. With a swift motion, Holmes managed to wrestle the dagger from the intruder's grasp, forcing them to the ground. "Enough!" he barked, pinning the figure down. "What do you know of the mirror?" The intruder, still masked, glared defiantly. "You cannot stop what is destined. The curse will claim you all." Before Holmes could respond, the intruder twisted free, darting toward the open window. Without hesitation, they leaped from the ledge and vanished into the night, leaving chaos in their wake. Breathing heavily, Watson turned to Ashcroft, who stood wide-eyed, clearly shaken. "What just happened?" I don't know," Ashcroft stammered, his bravado evaporating. "I assure you I had no involvement in this." Holmes, still reeling from the encounter, turned to Watson. "We must pursue the intruder. They may lead us to the truth behind the mirror and the diamond." Without a moment's hesitation, they raced out into the rain-soaked streets, determination propelling them forward. The shadows whispered around them, and the echoes of the past beckoned them deeper into the heart of the mystery. As they plunged into the night, the storm raged on, and a sense of foreboding loomed over them, a warning of the darkness yet to come. Chapter 5. The Game of Deception. The morning sun cast a pale light over London, the city still damp from the night's rain. Holmes, Watson, and Clara stood at the threshold of 221B Baker Street, the mirror safely stowed away in a concealed compartment of Watson's medical bag. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and uncertainty loomed over them like a shroud. "Holmes, what are we to do with the mirror now?" Clara asked, her voice tinged with apprehension. "We cannot simply keep it here. They will come for it. Again." Holmes nodded thoughtfully. "Indeed, Clara. We must find a way to protect it and uncover the true nature of those who seek its power. This is more than a mere artifact. It represents a dark history that must be understood if we are to keep it from falling into the wrong hands." Watson crossed his arms, his brow furrowed. "But how do we go about that? We're already embroiled in a web of deception. The masked figures who attacked us were clearly part of a larger scheme. First, we need to gather information about this society that seeks the mirror," Holmes replied, his mind racing with possibilities. "Their motives, their leaders, and the extent of their reach must be uncovered." Clara interjected, her eyes wide with concern. "But how do we do that? They could be anywhere, and they might be watching us right now." Holmes turned to her, a glimmer of determination in his eyes. "We must play a game of deception ourselves. If they believe we are oblivious to their intentions, we may be able to draw them out. We need to create a false narrative, one that will lead them to reveal their plans." Watson raised an eyebrow. "You mean to bait them into showing their hand?" "Precisely," Holmes confirmed. "We'll need to spread word of a supposed auction for the mirror. If we can attract their attention, we might discover who they are and what they want." Clara looked uncertain but nodded slowly. It's risky, but it might be our only option. As long as we remain vigilant and prepared, we can navigate this treacherous game, Holmes assured her. Now let us begin. Over the next few days, Holmes crafted a detailed plan. He enlisted the help of a few trusted contacts in London's underworld, discreetly spreading rumors of a clandestine auction for the mirror, set to take place at a well-known but obscure location. The word traveled quickly, and soon whispers of the auction reached the ears of those who sought the artifact. As the day of the auction approached, the atmosphere in Baker Street grew tense. Clara had taken to studying the mirror, trying to unlock its secrets, while Watson prepared for any potential confrontation. Holmes, ever the strategist, spent hours in thought, analyzing every possible outcome. On the evening of the auction, the three of them arrived at the designated location, a dimly lit warehouse on the outskirts of the city, its entrance guarded by a heavy door. The air was thick with anticipation, and the sounds of muffled voices echoed within. "Remember, we must remain inconspicuous," Holmes instructed as they approached the entrance. "Let them believe we are mere spectators." Watson nodded, his hand resting on the hilt of his cane. "And if things go awry, then we adapt," Holmes replied, his gaze unwavering. "We must be prepared for anything." They stepped inside, the warehouse filled with flickering candles and the scent of smoke. A small crowd had gathered, an eclectic mix of individuals, each with their own motives. Holmes scanned the room, his mind working to identify potential threats. As the auction began, a shadowy figure stepped onto a makeshift stage at the front of the room. The figure was cloaked, their face obscured by a hood. "Ladies and gentlemen," the figure began, their voice smooth and commanding, "welcome to tonight's exclusive auction. We have rare items of great significance, but none more so than the artifact you all seek," the crowd murmured in excitement, and Clara grasped Watson's arm tightly. "This is it. They're talking about the mirror." The figure continued, "Tonight, we offer the legendary mirror that holds the secrets of the past. Bidding will begin at a modest price, but I assure you, its true value is immeasurable." Holmes leaned closer to Clara and Watson. "Stay alert. We need to gauge the reactions of those present." As the bidding commenced, various individuals raised their hands, calling out amounts that quickly escalated. Among the crowd, Holmes noticed a familiar face. Lord Ashcroft, the gambler they had encountered before. His presence sent a jolt of recognition through him. "Watson, keep an eye on Ashcroft," Holmes instructed, his voice low. "He's not here for the mirror. He's here to ensure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands." Watson nodded, his eyes fixed on Ashcroft, who seemed to be engaged in a hushed conversation with another cloaked figure. The bidding continued, and as prices soared, Holmes observed the tension in the room. It became clear that not everyone present was interested in the mirror for its aesthetic value. Some sought its power and others appeared more sinister. Suddenly, a voice rang out from the back of the room. "I will pay double." The crowd turned to see a tall, imposing figure step forward, their face still hidden beneath a mask. "The mirror is not for the faint of heart," the auctioneer warned, taking a cautious step back. "It holds a curse. Curses are for the weak," the masked figure replied confidently. "I will not be deterred." Holmes exchanged a glance with Clara, both of them sensing the danger that loomed. "We must intervene," he said, determination etched across his face. As the auctioneer tried to regain control, Holmes stepped forward, addressing the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, I must implore you to reconsider. The mirror is not merely an artifact. It carries a legacy of tragedy and darkness. It cannot be treated as a mere commodity." The room fell silent, all eyes on Holmes. The masked figure narrowed their gaze. "And who are you to warn us? A simple detective? I am Sherlock Holmes, and I am here to ensure that the mirror does not fall into the wrong hands," he declared, his voice steady and authoritative. The masked figure chuckled, a low, menacing sound. "You think you can protect it? You are merely a pawn in a game far beyond your understanding." With that, chaos erupted. The crowd, sensing the tension, began to surge forward, eager to claim the mirror for themselves. Holmes quickly motioned for Watson and Clara to follow him as he made his way toward the exit. "Stay close," he shouted, pushing through the throng of bodies. "We need to escape before they realize what we're truly after." As they reached the door, the masked figure lunged forward, attempting to block their exit. Holmes swiftly sidestepped, grabbing a nearby chair and using it to create a barrier. "Go, I'll hold them back." Watson hesitated, glancing back at Holmes. "We can't leave you. Just go," Holmes insisted, his voice firm. "I'll catch up, trust me." With a heavy heart, Watson and Clara pushed through the door and into the cool night air. The sounds of chaos erupted behind them, but they didn't stop running until they reached a safe distance. Once they were far enough away, Watson turned to Clara, his breath heavy with exertion. "We have to find a way to help Holmes. He can't face them alone." Clara nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "We will, but first we need to regroup and come up with a plan. He needs us to be smart about this." As they hurried through the winding streets of London, Clara felt a renewed sense of purpose. The mirror's secrets were still waiting to be uncovered, and they would do everything in their power to protect it and Holmes. Back at the warehouse, Holmes stood his ground amidst the chaos. The masked figure and their followers surged forward. But he was ready. He had played their game, and now it was time to turn the tables. "Let's see how well you fare against a true detective," he muttered, steeling himself for the battle ahead. Chapter 6. The Chase Through London. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the streets of London as Holmes prepared to confront the chaos that had erupted at the auction. The masked figure had slipped through the crowd, and now the air was thick with tension, the remnants of panic still palpable among the attendees. Holmes stood resolute, his keen mind racing. He knew that the masked figure, who had aggressively pursued the mirror, was not just a mere collector. They were part of something much larger, a network that sought to manipulate the power of the artifact for their own dark purposes. As he surveyed the scene, he caught sight of several figures moving through the shadows, eyes darting with suspicion. The auction had been a trap, a carefully orchestrated game of deception, and now he was determined to turn the tables. "Holmes!" a voice called from behind him, breaking him from his thoughts. It was Watson, breathless and frantic. "We need to find Clara. She's in danger." "Watson, listen closely," Holmes replied, his voice steady. "Clara is resourceful, but we cannot leave her alone. The masked figure sought her out specifically. They believe she knows more about the mirror than she lets on." "I saw her." "Leave through the back exit," Watson said, urgency in his tone. "We must hurry." Without another moment's hesitation, they dashed through the crowd, navigating the chaos. The echoes of shouts and scuffles faded as they exited the warehouse into the cool night air. The streets were quiet now, but Holmes felt the weight of danger lurking just beneath the surface. "Where do you think she went?" Watson asked, glancing around nervously. "Follow the trail," Holmes instructed, his instincts guiding him. "She would likely seek refuge in a place that holds significance, somewhere she feels safe." "Her grandmother's old bookshop," Watson exclaimed, recalling Clara's fondness for it. "It's not far from here." "Then that's where we'll go," Holmes affirmed, setting off at a brisk pace, his mind racing with the possibilities. The chase through London had begun, but he knew that they would have to act quickly if they were to find Clara before her pursuers did. As they navigated the darkened streets, the sounds of the city at night filled their ears. Distant voices, the clanging of horse-drawn carriages, and the rhythmic patter of rain against cobblestones. Holmes kept his senses sharp, aware that danger could be lurking around any corner. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his eye. He stopped abruptly, motioning for Watson to be quiet. "Did you see that?" he whispered, pointing to a shadow darting between two buildings. "Someone's following us," Watson murmured, his grip tightening on his cane. "Let's not let them know we're aware," Holmes replied, a glint of determination in his eyes. "We'll lead them to Clara's location, and then we can turn the tables." They altered their course, taking a series of winding alleys, moving swiftly but cautiously. The shadows danced around them, and the sense of being hunted heightened their adrenaline. After a few minutes, they arrived at the bookshop, its dim light glowing faintly through the frosted windows. Holmes pushed the door open, the bell above it chiming softly as they entered. The familiar scent of aged paper and leather filled the air, and for a brief moment, they felt a sense of solace. "Clara!" Watson called, his voice echoing through the quiet space. "Are you here?" There was no reply, but Holmes could sense that they were not alone. He moved cautiously through the aisles, scanning the shelves for any sign of her. Just as he reached the back, he heard a faint rustle behind a stack of books. "Holmes? Watson?" Clara's voice emerged, laced with anxiety. "Clara!" Watson rushed forward, relief flooding over him as he found her crouched behind the shelves. "Are you all right?" "They're coming for me," Clara whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "I overheard them discussing their plans. They want the mirror, and they know I have it." "Not if we can help it," Holmes said, his voice resolute. "We must leave this place at once. Gather what you can. We'll need to move quickly, as—" Clara collected a few essentials from the shop. Holmes kept watch at the door, his mind racing with strategies. He knew that their pursuers would not be far behind, and they needed to act decisively. "Let's go out the back," he suggested, leading them toward a hidden exit. "We can circle around and avoid detection." They slipped out of the shop and into the narrow alley behind it. The rain had begun to fall again, a steady drizzle that masked their footsteps. The streets were slick and dark, but Holmes felt a sense of clarity as he plotted their next move. "Where to now?" Clara asked, her voice a mix of fear and determination. "To a safe house," Holmes replied. "I have a contact who can help us. Someone who knows the city's underbelly better than anyone else." They hurried through the labyrinthine streets, keeping to the shadows. As they turned a corner, Holmes caught sight of a group of figures, moving in their direction, their hoods pulled low over their faces. "Quickly behind that cart," Holmes urged, leading them to take cover. They crouched low, hearts pounding as they watched the figures pass, unaware of their presence. Once the danger had passed, they resumed their journey, finally arriving at a small, nondescript building tucked away in a less-traveled street. Holmes knocked swiftly, and the door opened to reveal a wiry man with sharp features and a knowing look. "Holmes!" the man exclaimed, his eyes darting to Clara and Watson. "I didn't expect to see you here. Come in quickly." They stepped inside, the door closing behind them with a heavy thud. The room was dimly lit, filled with the scent of tobacco and the sound of crackling fire. "I'll explain everything once we're safe," Holmes said, his tone urgent. "We've been followed, and we need to regroup." The man known as Finn nodded, his expression serious. "You're not the first to seek refuge from those shadows. They've been stirring, looking for something dangerous." Holmes exchanged glances with Clara and Watson. "The mirror is at the center of it all. We need to understand its significance and what those pursuing it intend to do." "Then we'll have to work quickly," Finn said, leading them to a small back room filled with maps and documents. "I have contacts who can help track down the society behind this. We need to determine their next move." As they settled into the safe house, Clara felt a sense of urgency. The chase through London had only just begun, and the stakes were higher than ever. She had to confront the truth about the mirror, the power it held, and the darkness that sought to claim it. With their plan in motion, the trio began to piece together the fragments of information that would lead them closer to the heart of the mystery. The game of deception had turned into a race against time, and they were determined to uncover the truth before it was too late. Chapter 7. Secrets of the Past. The dim light of the safe house flickered as Holmes, Clara, Watson, and Finn gathered around an old wooden table, the air thick with tension and urgency. Maps and notes lay strewn across the surface, remnants of their hurried attempt to piece together the mystery surrounding the cursed mirror. Holmes leaned forward, his finger tracing a line on one of the maps. "We need to understand the history of the mirror. its origins, and the people who have sought it before us. Only then can we anticipate the moves of those who want it now. Clara nodded, her mind racing with thoughts of her grandmother's tales. My grandmother spoke of the mirror as more than just an artifact. It was said to hold the memories of its past owners, their joys and sorrows, and those who were consumed by its power, Watson interjected, recalling the visions they had seen reflected in its depths. It's a dangerous object. We must tread carefully. Finn shuffled through a stack of documents, pulling out a yellowed piece of parchment. I've gathered some information about the society that has been pursuing you. They call themselves the Obsidian Circle. They believe the mirror grants them the ability to manipulate reality itself. A dangerous belief indeed. The Obsidian Circle, Clara whispered, recalling a fragment of a story her grandmother had once told her. They were rumored to have been disbanded, their members scattered after a series of dark events. Holmes looked up sharply. What kind of events? Clara hesitated, her mind racing to recall the details. There were whispers of rituals gone wrong, of members disappearing. Some even claimed that the mirror was cursed, that it brought misfortune to those who sought to wield its power. Then it seems they've regrouped, Holmes said, his voice steady. They are seeking the mirror to restore their influence and power. Finn leaned back in his chair, his expression serious. If they are indeed after the mirror for its rumored abilities, they will stop at nothing to get it. We need to uncover their current plans and locate their hideout. Holmes nodded, a glimmer of determination in his eyes. We can use the information we have to set a trap. If we can draw them into the open, we may learn what they intend to do with the mirror. Clara felt a surge of resolve. Then we must act quickly. I can't let the mirror fall into their hands. It's been a part of my family's history for generations, and I cannot allow its legacy to be tainted by their darkness. Watson placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We'll protect it, Clara. Together, we'll ensure that its secrets remain safe. As they strategized, Clara remembered the last time she had seen the mirror before it was hidden away. She had been a child, fascinated by its beauty and the stories it held. There's a journal, she said suddenly. My grandmother kept a journal about the mirror's history. It might contain valuable information about the Obsidian Circle and their previous attempts to control it. Then we need to find that journal, Holmes said, his voice filled with purpose. If it's in your grandmother's possession, it may provide us with the insight we need. Clara nodded, determination igniting in her heart. It's at her old cottage in the countryside. We can retrieve it and return before the Obsidian Circle can act. Then let's make our way there, Finn suggested. The sooner we leave, the better. With their plans set in motion, the group prepared for the journey ahead. They gathered supplies, ensuring they had everything they needed for the trip. As they stepped out into the night, the streets of London felt both familiar and foreign, the air heavy with the promise of danger. The ride to the countryside was tense, each of them lost in their thoughts. Clara couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out, that the Obsidian Circle was already one step ahead of them. Upon arriving at her grandmother's cottage, Clara felt a wave of nostalgia wash over her. The quaint structure stood, surrounded by a garden that had once been vibrant, but now lay in disarray. The air was thick with the scent of earth and the distant sounds of rustling leaves. Let's move quickly, Holmes urged, leading the way inside. The interior was a treasure trove of memories, each corner filled with remnants of Clara's childhood, but their focus was on the journal, which she remembered being tucked away in a small study. As they made their way to the study, Clara's heart raced. It should be on the desk, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The room was dimly lit, the dust dancing in the shafts of light that filtered through the windows. Holmes began searching the desk methodically, flipping through old papers and books. Watson scanned the shelves, while Finn kept watch at the door. Here. It is, Holmes exclaimed, holding up a leather-bound journal, its spine cracked with age. Let's see what secrets it holds. Clara took the journal, her fingers trembling as she opened it. The pages were filled with her grandmother's elegant handwriting, detailing the mirror's history, its previous owners, and the dark tales that surrounded it. "Look here," Clara said, reading aloud. "The Obsidian Circle was founded centuries ago by those who sought to harness the mirror's power for their own gain. It was said that the mirror could reveal hidden truths and grant visions of the future, but at a terrible cost." Watson leaned closer, intrigued. "What kind of cost?" "Those who used it became ensnared by its magic, losing their sanity and ultimately their lives," she continued, her voice steady despite the chilling content. "The society was driven underground after a catastrophic event, but it seems they've resurfaced, seeking the mirror again." Holmes furrowed his brow, his mind racing with connections. "This aligns with what we've seen. They believe they can control its power, but they're unaware of the true nature of the curse." Clara flipped through the pages, her heart racing, as she stumbled upon a drawing of the mirror itself. "This is it. My grandmother wrote about a ritual that can either destroy the mirror's curse or strengthen its hold. It's a balance of light and dark." Finn straightened, his expression grave. "If the Obsidian Circle is attempting to perform this ritual, we must stop them before they can succeed. It could give them unimaginable power." Holmes nodded, his gaze intense. "We must return to London and confront them before it's too late. We need to gather allies, inform those who can help us, and prepare for the impending confrontation." As they prepared to leave the cottage, Clara felt a surge of determination. The secrets of the past were now intertwined with their present, and she had to ensure that the mirror's legacy would not be marred by the darkness that sought to claim it. With the journal clutched tightly in her hands, they made their way back to the carriage, ready to face whatever awaited them in the shadows of London. Together, they would confront the Obsidian Circle and unravel the mysteries that bound them to the cursed mirror. Chapter 8. Confrontation at Baker Street. The streets of London seemed to pulse with an electric energy as Clara, Holmes, Watson, and Finn made their way back to Baker Street. The tension in the air was palpable, thick with the anticipation of the confrontation that awaited them. The city, usually a cacophony of sounds, felt eerily silent as they prepared for the impending showdown with the Obsidian Circle. As they approached 221B Baker Street, Clara's heart raced. The weight of the journal pressed heavily in her satchel, filled with knowledge that could either save them or doom them. With every step, the gravity of their mission sank deeper into her thoughts. "Holmes, what's our plan?" Watson asked, his voice steady despite the swirling anxiety within him. Holmes paused at the doorstep, his sharp gaze assessing their surroundings. "We need to fortify our position and prepare for an attack. The Obsidian Circle will not take kindly to our interference, and they will likely come for the mirror." Finn nodded in agreement. "If they believe we have the mirror, they will stop at nothing to retrieve it. We must prepare defenses and gather allies who can assist us in the fight." As they entered the familiar confines of Baker Street, Holmes quickly closed the door behind them, securing it with a heavy bolt. The scent of old books and the warmth of the fireplace provided a stark contrast to the cold reality outside. "Watson, gather any weaponry we might need," Holmes instructed, moving rapidly to the window to peer outside. "We must be ready for an ambush." Clara placed the journal on the table, her fingers brushing over the yellowed pages. "There's something in here about the rituals they perform. If we can disrupt their plans, it might weaken their resolve." Holmes turned to her, his expression intent. "What do you mean?" "It describes a method to counteract the mirror's influence," Clara explained, flipping through the pages until she found the right passage. "If we can perform a counter-ritual, it might protect us from their attempts to control the mirror. Then, we need to gather the necessary items," Holmes replied, his mind racing with possibilities. "We'll need to act quickly, as I suspect they will strike soon." As the group prepared, Clara felt a swell of determination. She had come too far to let fear dictate her actions. With the journal as their guide, they would confront the darkness head-on. Suddenly, a loud knock echoed through the room, startling them all. Clara's heart leaped into her throat. "They're here," she whispered, dread creeping in. Holmes motioned for silence as he moved to the door, peering through the peephole. "It's just a delivery man," he announced, opening the door. Slightly. "But we still need to be cautious." Watson quickly returned with a few items he had gathered: a small revolver, a couple of knives, and a set of sturdy walking sticks. "This should give us a fighting chance," he said, placing them on the table. "Good," Holmes said, taking a deep breath. "Now, Clara, let's focus on the counter-ritual. We need to prepare the space." The group set to work, moving furniture aside to create an open area in the center of the room. Clara began to arrange the items according to the instructions in her grandmother's journal, her hands steady, despite the chaos swirling in her mind. As they worked, the atmosphere in the room shifted. A sense of purpose filled the air. But it was tinged with the weight of impending confrontation. Time seemed to stretch as they completed their preparations, each moment drawing them closer to the inevitable clash. "Holmes, do you think we'll be able to fend them off?" Watson asked, his brow furrowed with concern. "I have no doubt that we can," Holmes replied, his voice firm. "But we must remain vigilant. The Obsidian Circle is cunning, and they will likely employ tricks and deceit to gain the upper hand." Just as they finished setting up the counter-ritual, another loud knock reverberated through the room, this time accompanied by a muffled voice. "Open up, Holmes. We know you're in there." Holmes exchanged a glance with Clara, his expression unreadable. "It seems they've arrived sooner than expected." Clara felt a rush of adrenaline. "What do we do?" "Stay close to me," Holmes instructed, his demeanor shifting to that of a strategist preparing for battle. "We'll confront them together. Finn, take position by the window and watch for any movement." The air in the room grew thick with anticipation. Clara's heart raced as they moved into their positions, ready for whatever lay beyond the door. Holmes opened the door slightly, peering out to see a group of shadowy figures standing in the dim light of the street. Among them was the masked figure from the auction, flanked by others clad in dark cloaks. "Holmes, we know you have the mirror," the masked figure called, their voice dripping with malice. "Surrender it now, and we may yet spare your lives." Holmes stepped out, his stance firm. "You will not have the mirror. It is not a tool for your twisted ambitions." Laughter echoed from the masked figure, a chilling sound that sent shivers down Clara's spine. "You think you can protect it? You have no idea of the power it holds. Hand it over or face the consequences." Clara felt a surge of courage as she stepped forward, her voice steady. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. The mirror is not a weapon. It's a burden. It has caused more suffering than you can imagine." "Enough of your nonsense," the masked figure spat, raising a hand to signal the others. "We will take it by force if necessary." In an instant, the atmosphere erupted into chaos. The cloaked figures surged forward, and Holmes quickly moved to shield Clara. "From the oncoming rush, now," he shouted, and Clara began to recite the words from her grandmother's journal, her voice rising above the din. As she spoke, an energy filled the room, illuminating the space with an ethereal glow. The masked figures faltered, their advance slowing as they were met with the force of the counter-ritual. "Keep going," Watson urged, brandishing his weapon as he faced the attackers. Finn stood by the window, ready to assist at a moment's notice. The air crackled with power as Clara continued to chant, her voice gaining strength. The masked figure glared at her, fury etched across their hidden face. "You cannot stop us, but—" Clara pressed on, the words flowing from her as if they were a part of her very soul. The glow around them intensified, pushing back against the darkness that threatened to engulf them. In that moment, the room transformed into a battleground of light and shadow. The cloaked figures recoiled, their forms flickering as the energy surged around them. With a final burst of strength, Clara spoke the last line of the ritual, and an explosion of light erupted from the center of the room, enveloping everything in its path. The masked figure screamed as the light struck them, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. When the light faded, the room fell silent. Clara, breathless and trembling, looked around to see the masked figure and their followers retreating. Into the night, their forms dissipating like smoke. "We did it," Watson exclaimed, relief washing over him. "We actually did it." Holmes turned to Clara, his expression one of awe. "You were incredible, Clara. You harnessed the power of the mirror and used it against them." But Clara felt a weight settle her chest. "They will return. This isn't over." "We'll be ready," Holmes assured her, his tone resolute. "We've shown them that we will not stand idly by while they seek to control the mirror's power." As they gathered in the aftermath, the journal lay open on the table, a reminder of the battle they had just faced. Clara knew that the secrets of the past were far from resolved, and the fight to protect the mirror and its legacy was only beginning. Chapter 9. The Final Puzzle. The aftermath of the confrontation at Baker Street left Clara, Holmes, Watson, and Finn reeling, but it also ignited a fierce determination within them. The masked figures might have retreated for the moment, but Clara knew that the Obsidian Circle would regroup and return, more dangerous than ever. As they sat around the table, the flickering light of the lamp casting shadows on the walls, Clara opened the journal again, her fingers tracing the faded ink. The pages whispered secrets of the past, and she felt an urgency to decipher them before it was too late. "What's our next move?" Watson asked, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We can't just wait for them to attack again." Holmes leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the text. "We need to understand the true nature of the mirror, and why the Obsidian Circle is so intent on claiming it. There must be something in here that reveals their ultimate goal." Clara flipped through the journal, her heart racing as she came across an entry that caught her attention. "Here, my grandmother wrote about a hidden chamber, a place where the mirror was originally kept. It's said to contain the key to unlocking its true potential." "A hidden chamber?" Finn asked, intrigued. "Where is it located?" "It's in the old catacombs beneath the city," Clara replied, her voice steady. "She mentioned that it can only be accessed through a series of puzzles and traps designed to protect the mirror from falling into the wrong hands." "Then that's where we need to go," Holmes said, determination etched on his face. "If we can find this chamber, we may uncover the truth about the mirror and thwart the Obsidian Circle's plans once and for all." As they prepared for their journey into the depths of the city, Clara felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. The catacombs were shrouded in mystery, and the thought of facing the puzzles her grandmother had written about sent shivers down her spine. Once they had gathered their supplies, the group set out into the night, the cool air brushing against their skin as they made their way to the entrance of the catacombs. The streets felt deserted, the shadows of the buildings looming over them like silent sentinels. Arriving at the entrance, a narrow alleyway leading into the darkness, Holmes paused to assess the surroundings. "This is it," he said, glancing back at the group. "Stay close together and be ready for anything." They descended into the catacombs, the sound of their footsteps echoing against the damp stone walls. The air grew colder, the darkness enveloping them as they ventured further into the depths. Clara could feel her heart pounding in her chest, every instinct telling her that they were not alone. As they navigated the twisting passages, Clara recalled her grandmother's words about the first puzzle. "The first challenge involves a riddle," she said, her voice steady despite the unease creeping in. "It tests our knowledge of the mirror and its past." "Let's hear it," Holmes urged, his keen mind already analyzing the situation. Clara closed her eyes, trying to remember the exact wording. "I think it goes like this. I am a reflection of the soul, a keeper of secrets untold. In darkness, I show what's hidden away, but be warned, I will lead you astray." "What am I?" Watson pondered for a moment, furrowing his brow. "It sounds like it could refer to the mirror itself, but the last line is troubling." "Indeed," Holmes replied, his eyes glinting with realization. "The answer must be the mirror. Let's see if it triggers the next step." With a deep breath, Clara stepped forward, her voice resonating as she spoke the answer aloud. The ground trembled beneath them, and the walls of the catacombs began to shift. A concealed door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit chamber filled with ancient artifacts and strange symbols etched into the stone. Remarkable, Finn breathed, stepping inside with caution. This place feels alive with history. As they entered the chamber, Clara felt a surge of energy, the air vibrating with an ancient power. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, upon which rested a small, intricately designed box. "This must be the next puzzle," she said, moving closer. Holmes examined the box, noting the engravings on its surface. "It appears to have a locking mechanism that requires another riddle." Clara paused, recalling another piece from her grandmother's journal. "I remember there being a second riddle that relates to the mirror's essence. It goes, to find the truth within the lies, you must first see through the disguise. When shadows dance and secrets play, what is the light that guides the way?" Finn rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "That's a clever one. It suggests that we need a source of light to unlock whatever is inside." Holmes nodded. "We'll need to find a way to illuminate the box. There may be something in this chamber that can help us." As they searched the room, Clara's eyes fell upon a small oil lamp resting on a shelf. She grabbed it, quickly filling it with oil from a nearby container. "This should do the trick," she said, her heart racing with anticipation. Holmes struck a match, igniting the lamp and filling the chamber with a warm glow. As the light danced across the walls, they returned to the box, and Clara held the lamp above it, illuminating the engravings. The moment the light touched the box, the engravings began to shimmer, and the lock clicked open. With a deep breath, Clara lifted the lid, revealing a beautifully crafted crystal orb nestled within. "This must be it," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. "The key to understanding the mirror's power." As she lifted the orb, the chamber responded with a low hum, and the walls began to shift once more. A hidden passageway opened up behind the pedestal, leading deeper into the catacombs. "Let's move," Holmes urged, his gaze fixed on the new path. "We're closer to uncovering the truth." They entered the passage, the sound of their footsteps echoing against the stone walls. The air felt charged with energy as they pushed forward, the anticipation building with every step. As they reached the end of the corridor, they found themselves in a vast underground chamber, the walls adorned with ancient tapestries that depicted the history of the mirror and the obsidian circle. In the center of the room stood an altar, and upon it a larger version of the mirror they had seen before. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she approached it. "This must be the original mirror," she said, awestruck. "It's beautiful." Holmes stepped forward, studying the mirror's surface. "And dangerous, we must tread carefully." Suddenly a chilling laughter echoed through the chamber, and the masked figure from before emerged from the shadows, flanked by other members of the obsidian circle. Clara's heart sank as she realized they had been followed. "You've done well to reach this point," the masked figure sneered. "But your journey ends here. The mirror belongs to us, and you will not interfere." Holmes stepped protectively in front of Clara and Watson. "You will not take it. We know its true power, and we will not let you abuse it." The masked figure's eyes glinted with malice. "You understand nothing of the mirror's potential. With it, we can reshape reality itself." Clara felt a surge of courage as she stepped forward, the crystal orb still clutched tightly in her hand. "You're wrong. The mirror is not a weapon. It's a reflection of our souls. Those who seek to control it will only be consumed by their own darkness." The masked figure laughed again, but this time there was a hint of uncertainty in their voice. "Enough of this foolishness. Seize them." As the members of the obsidian circle lunged forward, Clara held the orb high, feeling its energy pulse through her veins. "We can't let them win," she shouted to Holmes and Watson. Together they stood firm, the light from the orb illuminating the chamber as the power of the mirror began to swirl around them. Clara felt a connection to the mirror, an understanding of its history and its purpose. "Now!" Holmes shouted. and Clara began to recite the counter-ritual from her grandmother's journal, her voice ringing clear and strong. As she spoke, the energy from the orb merged with the light of the mirror, creating a brilliant display that enveloped the room. The masked figure and their followers faltered, their forms flickering in the radiant glow. "Stop her!" the masked figure screamed, but it was too late. The light surged, breaking through the darkness that threatened to consume them. With a final burst of power, Clara finished the ritual, and the chamber erupted with an explosion of light, banishing the obsidian circle into the shadows. The mirror's surface shimmered, reflecting the truth of their intentions back at them, revealing their deepest fears and regrets. As the light faded, Clara, Holmes, Watson, and Finn stood together, breathless but unbroken. The chamber was silent. The threat of the obsidian circle momentarily vanquished. "Did we do it?" Watson asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Holmes nodded, a satisfied smile on his face. "For now, we've protected the mirror and its legacy. But the journey is far from over. We must ensure that the secrets of the past remain hidden from those who would abuse them." Clara looked at the mirror, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. "We'll find a way to safeguard it together." As they left the chamber, a renewed sense of purpose filled their hearts. The final puzzle had been solved, but the path ahead was still shrouded in mystery. They would continue to protect the mirror and its secrets, standing against the darkness that sought to claim it. Chapter 10. Justice Served. The atmosphere in the underground chamber was thick with the remnants of magic as Clara, Holmes, Watson, and Finn emerged from the ordeal. The light had faded, but the energy lingered, leaving a sense of hope and finality in its wake. They had defeated the obsidian circle, at least for the moment, but Clara knew the struggle to protect the mirror was far from over. As they ascended from the catacombs, the weight of their victory began to settle in. The first rays of dawn broke over London, casting a golden hue across the city, a stark contrast to the darkness they had just faced. Clara felt a sense of renewal, but also a deep responsibility for the legacy of the mirror and the history it carried. "We need to make sure the obsidian circle cannot regroup," Holmes stated, his mind already strategizing their next steps. "We have to alert the authorities about their activities and the threat they pose." Watson nodded, determination etched on his face. "If we can gather enough evidence against them, it will be easier to dismantle their operations for good." As they made their way back to Baker Street, Clara felt a mix of apprehension and resolve. She had uncovered truths about her family and the mirror, but the knowledge also brought a heavy burden. Would she be able to ensure its safety? Upon returning to 221B Baker Street, the group wasted no time. Clara pulled out the journal and began to compile all the notes and evidence they had gathered, detailing the Obsidian Circle's activities, their motivations, and the encounters they had faced. "Holmes, if we present this to Scotland Yard, might help us secure a thorough investigation," Clara suggested, her voice steady as she wrote. "Indeed," Holmes replied, his eyes glinting with approval. "We'll also need to share our first-hand accounts of the confrontation. The more details we provide, the harder it will be for them to dismiss our claims." As they prepared their report, Clara glanced out the window, the bustling streets of London coming to life with the sounds of morning. But beneath the surface, she could still feel the lingering threat of the Obsidian Circle. They had to act, swiftly. "Let's head to Scotland Yard," Finn said, breaking her thoughts. "The sooner we present our findings, the better." With the journal in hand, they made their way through the streets, Clara's heart racing with a mix of adrenaline and nerves. This was a pivotal moment, one that could determine the fate of the mirror and the safety of those who sought to protect it. Upon arriving at Scotland Yard, they were met with a stern-looking officer who seemed skeptical of their claims. "What is it you want?" he asked, crossing his arms. Holmes stepped forward, his demeanor commanding. "We have urgent information regarding the Obsidian Circle, a secret society that poses a significant threat to the security of this city and beyond." The officer raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. And what evidence do you have to support such claims? Clara took a deep breath, stepping forward to present the journal. This contains detailed accounts of their activities, as well as our encounters with them. We've witnessed their operations firsthand, and they are actively seeking to control a powerful artifact, the mirror. The officer glanced at the journal, flipping through its pages with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. You expect us to believe this. I understand your doubts, but I assure you every word is true, Clara insisted. The mirror is not just an object. It holds power that can corrupt those who seek to control it. We cannot let the obsidian circle succeed. The officer's expression softened slightly. As he continued to read, his curiosity piqued. If what you say is true, this could be serious. Holmes seized the opportunity. We need your assistance in launching an investigation. The obsidian circle is regrouping, and if we don't act quickly, they will pose an even greater threat. After what felt like an eternity, the officer finally nodded. All right, I'll present this to my superiors. But know this, if you're lying, there will be consequences. With their report submitted, Clara and the others felt a weight lift from their shoulders. They had taken the first step in ensuring justice for the mirror and those who sought to misuse its power. As they left Scotland Yard, Clara felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had faced darkness together and emerged victorious. But the fight was far from over. Days turned into weeks as they waited for news from Scotland Yard. Clara kept a close eye on the journal, poring over its pages, seeking any additional insights that might help them in the future. Then, one evening, they received word that a raid was being organized against known members of the Obsidian Circle. Clara's heart raced with anticipation. This was their chance to bring justice to those who had threatened their lives and the legacy of the mirror. On the day of the raid, Clara, Holmes, Watson, and Finn stood outside the designated location, a derelict warehouse on the outskirts of London. They watched as officers moved in, their expressions serious and determined. "Stay close," Holmes advised, his gaze fixed on the entrance. "We need to be ready for anything." As the officers breached the door, Clara felt a surge of adrenaline. This was the moment they had worked so hard for. They would bring the Obsidian Circle to justice. The sounds of shouting and chaos erupted from within the warehouse, and Clara's heart raced. She could see officers apprehending cloaked figures, confiscating strange artifacts, and dismantling the operations that had threatened their city. Amidst the commotion, Clara spotted the masked figure from before, being led away in handcuffs, a look of fury etched on their face. "You think this is the end?" they spat. "You have no idea what you've unleashed." Holmes stepped forward, his expression unwavering. "We know exactly what we've uncovered, and we will ensure that you and your followers are held accountable for your actions." As the last of the Obsidian Circle members were taken into custody, Clara felt a wave of relief wash over her. Justice was being served, and the legacy of the mirror was safe for now. In the following days, the news spread throughout London. The Obsidian Circle had been dismantled, their activities exposed, and their leaders brought to justice. Clara, Holmes, Watson, and Finn were hailed as heroes for their role in uncovering the truth. But amidst the celebrations, Clara remained mindful of the mirror's power. She knew that while they had won this battle, the war against darkness was ongoing. The legacy of her family and the mirror was now intertwined with their journey, and she felt a profound responsibility to guard it. As they stood together on a rooftop overlooking the city, Clara took a deep breath, the cool wind whipping through her hair. "We did it," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "But there's still so much to learn." Holmes nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "Indeed. The mirror's secrets are not yet fully understood, and we must continue to protect it from those who would seek to exploit its power." "We'll face whatever comes next together," Finn added, a smile on his face. "We've proven that. We're stronger as a team," Clara smiled back, her heart swelling with pride for her friends. They had faced darkness and emerged into the light, united in their purpose. The journey ahead was uncertain, but together, they would continue to uncover the mysteries of the past and safeguard the future. As the sun set over London, casting a warm glow across the city, Clara felt a renewed sense of hope. The mirror would remain protected, and its legacy would continue, shining brightly against the shadows that threatened to consume it.